If you're looking back on your life, what is a big regret that you have that taught you a valuable lesson?
Where would I be? What could I have done if I had a supportive rather than violent and destructive upbringing? I got a 4-year scholarship, and my parents intercepted that letter and burnt it. I found out when I was 52 years old. I was their property. My father told me that, and I thought I will never be that person.
Where do you think people go wrong then?
Most women give up. What is your most precious possession? It's time. How are you going to use that?
In this video, I'll be interviewing Diane Gilman, an 80-year-old self-made millionaire, best known as the Jean Queen, on a 20-year-long tele-retail show. She goes on to design jeans for the likes of Cher, Jimi Hendrix, and Jim Morrison. Diane's story is full of ups and downs, and is truly one of the most wisdom-filled journeys I've ever listened to. You are going to learn a lot of interesting life advice from this conversation. How old are you?
79 and a half years old.
What does it feel like to be almost 80?
Freaky. Don't expect it to be 60 or 50. It is its own particular territory, and you're going to have to find a way to live that and live up to the challenges, or you don't want to be here. It's not easy. Absolutely not. Most women give up somewhere towards the end of middle age. If you're going to play that comparison game, you are going to mutilate your peace of mind. I think I'm doing pretty well for 80.
I would say a lot of people don't feel the way that you feel at 80. Like maybe they feel a bit worse, or they're kind of just chugging along.
Well, when I see these stupid commercials like on TV, like, I'm getting better every year, that is so much BS.
Where do you think people go wrong then in that case?
Attitude.
So you're born in 1945. You said when you were born, your parents were 45 and 50.
Yeah.
What was your childhood like? If someone is listening to you and watching you right now and they've never heard of you, they don't know you, and in order to understand who you are today, what do we need to learn
pretty
about before?
My childhood was pretty rough. My parents had both been driven pretty crazy by the Depression of 1929. Their lives were always shadowed by money, the lack of money, having money, and a lot of violence in the house. I didn't want to get married. I didn't even play with baby dolls. I just wanted to make clothes for them. I was born this way. It sounds like Lady Gaga, but I, from a very young age, said I want to be a fashion designer. And my parents thought I was deranged. So when I was 17, my high school teacher knew I loved fashion, knew I loved French, knew I loved France. He applied for me to the Sorbonne, and I got a 4-year scholarship. And my parents intercepted that letter and burnt it. I found out when I was 52 years old. I could have had a totally different life. They just thought that was the right way to do it. I was their property. My father told me that, and they could do what they wanted with their property. So I struck out on my own pretty early in life.
What prompted you to leave home? And how old are you at that time?
I say 17 and a half. Every school I got into, my parents refused to fund me. They said college for women was just to go find a husband, and UCLA was my best bet for getting married. I had my own life to live. I was a dream child for the right set of parents. I knew what I wanted to do. I worked from the time I was 11 years old in a local boutique, made my own money to spend on my own stuff, and they were just terrified by me. At some point, I got on TV and shot straight up, and there was no appreciation of me. I wasn't what they wanted me to be. We just didn't. We weren't, I don't know who chose who and whatever spiritual arena, but I guess we were there to test one another, but we certainly were not there to appreciate one another.
How does that make you feel? Like if you're thinking back on all those moments? I mean,
it makes
I'm
me
imagining
angry.
For myself too, that'd be very frustrating.
It makes me angry. I feel like, where would I be? What could I have done if I had a supportive rather than violent and destructive upbringing?
How did that manifest, or did it manifest in other aspects of your life? That
I think it made me fight for everything. I think that I had to leave home with a quarter in my pocket. I had no money, but I was always on the periphery of rock and roll. And so I met Cher and made clothes for her, and Margaret and made clothes for her, and the Jefferson Airplane, and Jimi Hendrix. And yeah, I would say youth was not wasted on me. Yeah, I had a good time.
Again, for people who don't know you and don't know what you're about, I mean, we know now you're a fashion designer, but tell us how that got started, because it got started at UCLA.
I wanted so much to be an artist, and I knew design, fashion design, was my way to go. I read women's wear every day, and one day I looked out and I see this woman, and she looks like the fashion coordinator of Bloomingdale's. And I came running over to her and I said, "Hi, I'm a designer, and I have a collection, and I'd really love to show it to you." And she was like, "Oh my God, not another one." So about 2 months later, she gave me an appointment. I harassed her, and I sewed everything myself. Everything was done by hand. And I showed it to her, and she went crazy and called the president of Bloomingdale's and got him downstairs to see it. And they bought $100,000 worth of clothing. And I burst out in tears, and she said, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "Well, I thought you were going to buy like 3 pieces. I don't have any money to produce this." And they funded everything. But I really, really started using all my inner resources when I designed the middle-aged jean for the TV customer at the age of 60, and then shot up into the stratosphere and was selling 2-3 million pairs of jeans a year. Probably into the second year, we started hitting very close to $100 million at retail. It was huge, huge. You're the luckiest person in the world if you get to do something every day that you are truly in love with. And I was obsessed.
You would say, if you're looking back on your whole career, that your biggest break or your like pinnacle was when you were 60.
Yeah.
That it's interesting, because I see a lot of people who want to get into things and they just want to be successful very fast. And if they don't see the success right away, they think that they're a failure. They don't think it's worth it. Why not jump into something else? But I mean, you're looking back on your career, and you say your peak is 40 plus years after, about 40 years after we started.
I retired at 78, but at the age of 72, I had to take a year off for breast cancer. I thought, okay, life is so finite, life is so fragile, life is such a privilege. Is this really what you want to do for the rest of your life? And I thought, no. I thought, what do you want? What do you want out of this part of your life? And you can be honest to yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody else, but be honest. This is such a pretty journal.
This is the sections. Who am I, and
what do I want? And that is so unique.
Yeah.
Because most people don't think they can even dare ask that question. What do I want? What do you mean, what do I want from old age? Well, I mean just that. Think about it this way. These are the most precious years. And if you have to say, what is your most precious possession? It's time. It is of the moment. How are you going to use that? How are you going to take care of that and nurture it and get something lasting? Tomorrow, not promised to us, and the past is the past.
In your opinion, if you had to boil it down to a simple science, what makes a great life?
follow your dreams, believe in your dreams, believe they can come true, and follow your dreams. I remember as a little kid, I used to watch my parents, and their big thrill on weekends was cutting coupons out of the latest supermarket newspaper and going and, buying a 12-pack of Coke at $1 off. And I thought, I will never fucking be that person. I want every minute to count. I want so many adventures, and I'm willing to go to the edge with a lot of them. But I remember as a kid thinking, I want an extraordinary life, not an ordinary life. And that was my mantra all my life.
But you get breast cancer at 72.
Yeah.
That's, like you're saying, the height of your career.
Yeah.
What does it feel like in the moment? I know you're talking about it in retrospect.
I said to myself, well, I'm alone. And my life partner, died from cancer. So that was not a good viewpoint for me. And I remember coming home from the diagnosis. And I said, okay, this is not a dress rehearsal. You are not a diva in their world. By that time, I was treated like I was a genius, and I was traveling first class around the world, and I was expected to be star-driven. And I realized I was going to have to go through a lot of stuff I didn't want to go through, and that nobody likes a cranky, bitter old lady, so I was going to have to be the best me I could be. The night before chemo, my first chemo treatment, terrified me. And I realized that I was going to have to become my bigger self, my best me, to get through this and get through it alone. I knew I was not going to die. I knew I was going to come out healthy. And I knew that I was meant to teach others how to have a different attitude, not as a victim, not as sad, but as somebody who actually, and believe me, nothing could have stopped me. So cancer was about the only thing that could stop me, or I would just have barreled through life that way. Not happy, always straining myself, but it's a privilege if you get a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And you really start to appreciate every minute of your life and realize it's a gift. If you can bring some happiness to people around you, I would like to think that I live to be a century, I live to be 100, and when I pass, people will say, she always brought a smile to my face, or she really helped me through a dark time, or helped me find my purpose. Those are my guidelines for how I live the rest of my life, with kindness, with purpose, with passion, and with love.
So you were married, you were saying? I
lived with somebody for 20 years. Yeah.
Not married?
Not married. Never wanted to be married. Never had any interest in family, yeah. I was with him 20 years. 10 good years and 10 really challenging years with cancer. At a time, he passed in 1997, so at a time when they didn't know anything about cancer. It was just impossible. So my view of cancer was, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. And I had to go through it and face it alone. Yeah. And I did it. And that changes your makeup too.
And you loved him?
Oh yeah, I idolized him. Yeah, that was a person that I always said, when I met him, I was somebody wandering through the desert, dying of thirst, and he was the long, cool water. He was the long, cool drink of water. Yep.
How did you know that? What was the initial feeling?
Just nobody understood me. I mean, I wasn't a woman of my times. Women of my times, they were born in the 40s. You had a prescribed life. He got it all. He saw my talent. And he was willing to be the man behind the throne. Usually it's a woman behind the throne for the king. But he got it. He always used to say, I was a thoroughbred. I just needed to find the right racetrack. He got it. He propelled me. He prepared me. And I was devastated when I lost him.
Can you define the word love for me?
I think for me, tapping into one another's power and sharing that and working with that and igniting it. He was just a very powerful personality. I always gave him all the credit in the world for giving me the stamina to keep on keeping on until it happened at 60 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're looking back on your life, what is a big mistake that you've made or a big regret that you have that taught you a valuable lesson?
I wish things had been more supportive with my family. I think my life would have been different, but I obviously was unable to choose that. And so what I did instead was I treated my talent with great reverence, and I treated my talent as if and was my child.
What is the truth that you have learned about life that you wish more people understood?
You know, there's an old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. I think that we've got a society today that believes it's owed something and doesn't want to work that hard. And for me, work was always a privilege because everybody wanted me to get married and live a life I didn't want to live. So I think find something you love to do and love your life every minute. And that means if you have to work in a bank, but you really love to bake and you come home on weekends and you make the best chocolate chip cookie in town and you sell it at flea markets, do it. But find something that you can develop within yourself that not only you really love, but gives you a tremendous sense of self-worth.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Diane.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, guess what? We actually released the full-length interview, every single second of advice on our podcast channel, Seeds of Success. You can check out the full interview by clicking the link right over here and subscribing. Thanks again, and see you next week.